Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Media Row Podcast, a brand new week of the Media Row Podcast with me, Justin Miller, after what was an incredible weekend of college football. We had upsets all over the place. Oregon gets upset. Iowa State gets upset. We had upsets all over the place. The top 25 looks so different now from a week ago. Storylines look different now. We had coaching changes late Sunday. So we have a lot to break down and can't wait to get to it here today on the show. But first, as always, a huge thank you to our sponsors in Stevens Automotive and Sales and Kelly's Little Nipper. Make sure to get over to Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue. Use that keyword in Woodley and your first drink is on the house. Like I said, we have a lot to get to. Even though I was at a wedding this weekend, I told you guys it's what they get for having a fall wedding. I was going to be paying attention to college football, to Drake football, to just the sporting world with postseason baseball as well. I even wanted to just make sure that I was in the clear, that I put out a tweet right before Megan and I headed out to the wedding on Saturday. I put out a tweet asking if I was a bad guy, if I sat there and watched the Drake game, watched the Iowa game, the Cubs game during the wedding. And 88% of you said no. That's what they get for having a fall wedding. And I respect all of you. To the 12% that said no, don't be that guy. I'm sorry, but if you're one of those people that believe, we should have our wedding during Cyhawk because then it brings people together, you're sorely mistaken because it just pisses off the entire wedding group. It pisses everyone off there at the wedding. So, no, to the 12%, keep listening to the show, keep participating. We respect that, but we may not respect your opinion on that question per se. But always appreciate everyone tuning in. If you missed that poll question I put out, it's probably because you're not following us on Twitter at Media Row Pod, which you are going to want to make sure you're doing today, at least by 2 o'clock, because we have Drake Men's Basketball Media Day today, and you're going to see firsthand interviews with Coach Henderson, the players, everything firsthand will be uploaded to Twitter today after Media Day. And then, of course, you can catch more of what we believe and think about Media Day on Wednesday's show. But if you want to see it firsthand, make sure you're following us at Media Row Pod on Twitter. Follow us all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Follow us everywhere because we have a lot of fun on social media. We post clips from the show, have some fun with polls, so follow us there. And then make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button. Takes 2 seconds, means the world to us here at Media Row. So please do that and continue to follow along and support the show as we keep going through football season. And now as we blink our eyes and basketball season is on the horizon. So what do we have planned today on this busy show? We have a Drake recap, which was an amazing game at San Diego. We have panic mode in Ames, Iowa. We have an offense and just points galore for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And then we have a huge coaching change here in the nation that we will get to at the end of the show as well. But let's jump right into it. We're going to start with the game that I was most eager for and covering during the wedding. They were cutting the cake, and I was watching this game. And like I said on Friday, I was going to get made fun of. Did not care because I love this team and I love covering Drake. But we're going to talk about Drake in San Diego and which was an amazing game. We didn't expect anything less. The past 3 games have been absolute nail biters for both teams. The past 2 games previous were decided by a total of 7 points. Now the past 3 have been decided by a total of 10 points because Drake wins on a game-winning 55-yard field goal to take down San Diego 19-16 to win their 3rd straight against San Diego and to improve to 2-0 in conference play. San Diego falls to 3-4 overall. Drake to 3-2 overall. But watching this game, the feeling I got watching Woodley's team out there is that this game in particular exemplified what has been the identity of the Drake Bulldogs so far through 5 games. If you go back and listen to our clip from the show after Drake's opening victory against Upper Iowa, the clip I chose to pick to talk about this team because those week 1 games, you really never know the true identity of your team. You don't know how good your team is because those week 1 games can be deceptive where your team never looks as good as they did, or never as good as they looked in week 1, or never as bad as they looked in week 1. So what I chose to talk about for Drake in that Upper Iowa victory was just how I loved their composure and I loved how they had poise and they just always bounced back. And I talked about it in the Upper Iowa game. I talked about it in the loss to South Dakota State on the road of how this team just, when things went wrong, you never saw anyone hanging their head. And I think this game against San Diego really exemplified all of that, all the characteristics for Coach Woodley and his team. Because Harry Balk, he misses a extra point attempt with about 4 minutes to go in the game after true freshman Logan Inagawa punches in the go-ahead touchdown for the Drake Bulldogs. They go up 16-13. You hit this PAT, and all the Drake defense has to do is just make sure San Diego doesn't get into the end zone. And that defense played well all game long. And he misses a chip shot. And I'm sitting there at the wedding table, hand on my head, just thinking, oh no. No. These games, we've seen Drake win on Hail Marys. It is possible. And it wouldn't shock me just with how these two teams play that it would be an exciting, thrilling end. Well, Drake, defense is able to keep them out of the end zone, but they tie it up. But what does this team do? It has composure. It has poise. And it marches up the field off of the arm of Chase Spellman and off of the legs of their running backs and Herman and Woodson, which we'll get to in a little bit. They put out Balk again. And this time, instead of a chip shot, he has to try to win the game for the Drake Bulldogs on a game-winning 55-yard field goal. Missing an extra point just a few minutes ago. All the pressure. And just absolutely drills it. And you're sitting there watching that, and that is what I think Coach Woodley, I think it's what he sees from this team in practices, in the coaching rooms, in the film rooms, is that this is a team that is willing to take criticism, is willing to bounce back when they get hit. And they're not a team to point fingers or to really overthink. And that is what Harry Balk did, a kid from San Diego, and goes out there and hits a 55-yard game-winning field goal. And just kudos to him. Deserves the PFL Special Teams Player of the Week, which he got because of just having composure in the guts. And did you guys see on social media, I shared it on our pages, but Drake Football, they put out a great video of Balk hitting the game-winning field goal, and that dude stares it down, all the confidence in the world. You just love to see it. You love to see it. But to dive into this game, we get to really talk about a part of the Drake offense in a positive lighting for really the first time this season. And I've been critical on the run game for Drake. I was critical all last week on this run game. I'm asking Coach Woodley, what is the issue? Is it an offensive line issue? Is it a personnel issue? What is going on with this Drake run game? It is not performing the way I think fans and coaches alike would want to see. And I don't know what Coach Woodley did exactly. We'll ask him on Wednesday's show. But something clicked. Drake is going up against the number 2 rushing defense in the PFL. And they go out there and have their best rushing performance all season long. Nick Herman, the freshman, who we talked about a lot a week ago in his performance against Valpo, when he came in late in that second half and just looked explosive, looked like he had great vision, great patience, but when he got into the open field, no one could stop him. No one could slow him down. And we sat here last week wondering, man, this freshman, I know Woodson is a captain and is a leader of this team vocally. I know Meisinger has a lot of promise as well. Do you give Herman an opportunity since Meisinger and Woodson just haven't gotten into a rhythm yet running the ball? He gets the carry. He gets the start. He gets 15 carries and goes off for 96 yards, 6.4 yards per carry. In the last 2 games, he's averaging 75 yards a game and 7 yards per carry. Drake has something special with this team, not just this season, but I think Woodley is really done a great job of finding these young athletes. Spellman is only a sophomore. Inagawa is a true freshman. Nick Herman, true freshman. They are finding young guys. A lot of these star players are sophomores and juniors. We are going to see a lot of these names. Of course, transfer portal is still a thing. Players can get pulled no matter if you're in a PFL or if you're in a Big Ten. You always are worried about your players being pulled and going into the transfer portal. But for the most part, we are going to see a lot of these big names for Drake next year. And in just 5 games, we're seeing this team improve. So I can't wait to see what happens in a year with this team. And that's not saying this team can't win a PFL title this year, but it's just saying that, man, if they're improving at this rate now, the ceiling just continues to get higher and higher for Woodley and his group. I thought Captain Luke Woodson, we knew last year that he could be a big offensive threat for Drake and just hadn't gotten into that rhythm at all this season and finally does. 7 carries for 55 yards, 1 touchdown, and his best yards per carry all year long, 7.9 yards per carry. Drake, against the second rush defense in the PFL. I can't stress that enough. We talked about in Friday's preview of this game of if Drake is going to win this game, they need to get that run game established. And if it's by the quarterbacks, it's by the quarterbacks, but it'd be nice to take a little bit of pressure off of them. But it's going to be so hard on the road with the travel against the number 2 rush defense in their league. And they just reacted like they were playing a practice game. I mean, rushing the ball came very easily for this team. The passing game wasn't there. And thank God the backs were ready to have Spellman's back, if you will. Drake averaged 4.7 yards per carry, most all year by Drake so far. And it was just incredible. It was incredible to see this team finally get it going. And again, I think we're seeing improvements each week by this team and by Woodley and his staff. Again, it's a young team. It's a young staff too. Adam Cox, first-year defensive coordinator. We saw the defense finally take over and take charge a week ago against Valpo. First-year offensive coordinator in Kyle Kemp saw what the passing game could do and what the quarterback runs could do against Upper Iowa and a little bit against South Dakota State. But now we're seeing him improve this run game as well. And a credit to the offensive line and their blocking. They continue to protect Spellman and continue to improve up front as well. With the quarterbacks, if you weren't able to watch the game, that was a big question we had going into Saturday's game of what will Coach Woodley and Kyle Kemp decide to do when a week ago you saw splits between Spellman and Inagawa. But you had Spellman, for the most part, being the main quarterback. 14 of 21, 128 yards. Again, not fantastic out there, but it is a guy that is coming off of an injury. Coach has said multiple times he is not 100%. He won't probably be 100% all season long. And it's also a guy coming back after missing an entire month. And he's having to play in conference play right out of the gate. I think he's done fine. You're waiting to see when that confidence throwing the ball deep or when he gets more comfortable throwing it deep pops up again because he looked really good against Upper Iowa. Inagawa, 2 of 4, 33 yards in the air, but they definitely now, and I'll ask Woodley about this on Wednesday, man, do you get worried when you have such a good running quarterback like Inagawa, where you use him for 12 yards rushing against San Diego, and he puts in the rushing touchdown to take the lead against San Diego? Do you get worried now that it's going to become obvious to a point of when Inagawa steps in that everybody in the stands, everyone on the sidelines, everyone on the field is expecting the true freshman to run the ball? That is the only issue I have when you split up quarterbacks and you worry about them getting into a rhythm. But it seems like Spellman handled it well. Inagawa clearly handled it well. So something is clicking with this double quarterback split offense. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But we've now seen 2 weeks in a row, 2 major concerns show up for the Drake Bulldogs. A week ago, we questioned the defense in the secondary. They proved us wrong. We questioned the running backs and the running game, and that was incredible. And the reason Drake was able to win the thriller at San Diego, 19-16, and also to a bulk 55-yard game-winning field goal. Drake will face Davidson at home in Des Moines this Saturday at noon. Davidson has lost 2 straight. We'll break down that game more throughout the week on Wednesday, of course, with Coach Woodley, and on Friday in our deep dive previews. So let's move forward to Ames, Iowa, where just chaos. Absolute chaos. Iowa State loses on the road, an ugly loss. Ugly. To a team that had not won a Big 12 game. At Colorado, they lose 24-17. And everyone is going to look at this game and point the finger at the refs for missing the blatant defensive pass interference call in the end zone against Ben Bramer, which is an awful no call. I'm not going to sit here and argue that shouldn't have been called. That is outrageous. It is a reason I saw a bunch of people tweet this out. It's people want to talk to the refs and be able to ask them, why did this not happen? And you're going to hear the Big 12 at some point, I bet, in this week go, oh, yeah, we missed that one. Our bad. And fans, I know coaches, you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't mean anything. You just sitting there going, oh, missed one. Our bad. Sorry. Like, I hate that. But that is not the reason Iowa State lost. Iowa State lost because they played sloppy. I think the coaching on Campbell's part, on Mauser's part, Haycock's part, the coaching all around was the worst we've seen from Iowa State all season long and even into last year. The team was awful on third down on both sides of the ball. Offensively, Iowa State, 2 of 12. Every time, I didn't get to watch this game down for down at the wedding, but every time I looked over or turned it on, peeked at it, poor Rocco's running away from 3 different Buffalo defenders, and I look at the yardage, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12. So it wasn't even that they're missing these third downs and they're convertible. These are tough third downs to convert for Iowa State. And then defensively, Colorado just never looked uncomfortable. 7 of 15 on third down for Colorado. Their quarterback barely got any pressure. Salter, 16 of 25, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You look at Rocco. Rocco continues to just look off. I'm a huge Rocco supporter. Absolutely love Rocco. But just continues to miss these odd throws. Wasn't very accurate. 18 of 33, 205 yards, an interception. But just the Cyclones, absolutely a tough road loss. Now you have to come back home and face a top 15 squad in BYU next weekend. And Yeah, it's college football. Anything can happen at home. But with the injuries and just with the way this team has played ever since that Arkansas State game, nothing gives me confidence with Iowa State right now. I think it's a tough road ahead for them. The college football playoffs is out of the window for Coach Campbell and Iowa State. They're going to need something out of this world to get them into the college football playoffs and even the Big 12 title game. I don't even know if Iowa State can really get a great bowl game now because they probably lose to BYU this weekend at home. And after that, there's really no win that makes Iowa State look great. Oh, you beat Oklahoma State at the end of the year. Great job. They're without a head coach and team looks awful. A lot of the teams left on the schedule have kind of that feeling of just they're on the back burner for this conference. And the Big 12 outside of BYU, Texas Tech looks like a title contender. They're very good. But BYU, Cincinnati looks good. They looked really good against Iowa State, but so did Colorado. So I don't know how much that speaks to Cincinnati and how much that speaks to how bad Iowa State is. But really, the Big 12 definitely isn't going to get two teams into the college football playoff, in my opinion. I feel comfortable saying that. Just as I felt comfortable last week, and I got a lot of flack for this, saying that Iowa State was overrated and that this was a team that maybe just tricked us all and wasn't as good as what we thought. Because I know losing Jeremiah Cooper and I know losing John Tez Williams and Carson Hansen this weekend against Colorado was huge. But I feel like it comes down to coaching too. They shouldn't have lost to Colorado, even without those guys. Iowa State, on paper, is a better team than Colorado. And I think that comes down to coaching. And I think Iowa State is just not as good as we wanted them to be at the start of the year, and kind of disaster on their hands in Ames, Iowa. And now it's just making sure that record looks okay for the rest of the year. And you try to get into a good bowl game, which we all now know in this day and age, bowl games, it doesn't matter if you're not in the college football playoffs, really. It really just, fans felt good about the Pop-Tart Bowl. Would have felt better making the college football playoffs in a heartbeat. Moving on, though, to more of a positive note, you have Iowa putting up points. When was the last time we sat here and said Iowa's putting up points? Iowa outscores Wisconsin 37-0. Just absolutely destroys the Badgers. The Hawkeyes, 210 offensive rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. And when you can do that for Iowa, do you even need a quarterback out there? Gronkowski played, but numbers weren't anything great. Didn't turn over the ball. Didn't have any touchdowns. Didn't even need to run the ball that much, which I'm sure they were just protecting his leg. But this team just absolutely handled the Badgers. The defense, surprisingly enough, with how well they played, no sacks, but they held Wisconsin to 82 passing yards. They forced 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, had a thick 6 for the Hawkeyes. Just absolutely dominated. A great win for Iowa. I know Wisconsin's bad, but how many times have we seen Iowa play a bad team and it's a 16-10 victory? It's an ugly, ugly victory. And I thought that's what this game was going to be. I did not think it was going to be a 37-0 blowout for the Hawkeyes. But a great win, a great confidence builder for this team going into now a very winnable game at home against Penn State. Speaking of Penn State, let's get to the biggest national story before we wrap up today's show. Around noon, 12:30 on Sunday, it broke that Penn State had fired James Franklin from the organization. It's an official dumpster fire here in Penn State. Team loses their 3rd straight game ever since that Oregon loss. They lost to Oregon, UCLA, awful loss, and another awful loss at home to Northwestern 22-21. On top of that, on top of losing your coach, on top of losing your third straight, you lose your starting quarterback in Drew Aller to injury. Just a dumpster fire for Penn State. Franklin's records. Should we do it one more time? Should we just do it one more time? 1-15 versus the top 5. 4-21 versus top 10. 3-17 versus Ohio State and Michigan. And we get to add a new one now after the weekend, as he is the first coach to lose consecutive games when favored by 20-plus points. And Franklin, I'm sure he didn't want to lose his job by any means, but you look at his buyout. Did you guys see this tweet? These are always incredible. I think we saw it with, Patrick Mahomes' huge contract, but when places break down, like by minute, by second, how much people will make in sports, it's out of this world. James Franklin will make over $20,000 per day from Penn State for the next 6 years. And this is according to @MLFootball on Twitter. Per minute, he's going to make $15. Per hour, $913. Per day, James Franklin, $21,917 per week, $153,846, and per month, $666,666. And they have a great line here, and I'm going to give them all the credit at ML Football on Twitter. Greatest gig in the world, getting fired as a head coach. There's some truth to that. There is absolutely some truth to that. We just read through his records. The dude didn't win any of those big games. That was his biggest critique. And gets paid $20,000? Nuts. And $20,000 per day, by the way. So, with the dumpster fire at Penn State, who's next up for the head coaching gig over there? And these were some names that I saw on the USA Today article, I've seen on Twitter, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on some of the names floating around to take over for James Franklin over there at Penn State. The first name a lot of people have mentioned over there in Indiana, Kirk Cignetti. Cignetti has 2 top 10 wins in 3 weeks with Indiana after they upset Oregon. And Franklin only had 2 top 10 victories in his last 9 seasons. We can all sit here and say Penn State is a better job than Indiana. But to be honest, in this day and age, with the NIL, is it that big of a difference for Cignetti to leave what he's already starting to build into a top 10 program over there at Indiana? He has them in the top 3 right now in college football. He had them in the college football playoffs in his first year. He is grabbing players that are fitting his program and what he wants to implement at Indiana to perfection. It seems like he has a great grip on Indiana. And I don't know if it's worth leaving Penn State for, because I believe in this day and age, Indiana would have the money to make it interesting and not just be able to allow Penn State to say, we're Penn State, it's Indiana. So I don't know about Kirk Cignetti. I think that would be a smart hire. I think anyone who would be able to get Kirk Cignetti would say that's a great hire. But does he leave Indiana is the question. Another one in a similar boat. Another name a lot of people mentioned, Matt Rule. He played at Penn State, but he has the Cornhuskers at 5-1 and could have easily been 6-0 and ranked right now. And this is not like Indiana in the terms of Nebraska easily has the money to compete with Penn State. They care so much about their football program at Nebraska. I think Matt Rule, he is a Penn State guy, but he has figured out Nebraska. And he is not going to want to go through those headaches again, I don't think, at Penn State. I don't know if it'd be a smart move leaving Nebraska for Penn State, which sounds crazy to say. Kenny Dillingham is another name from Arizona State. Great last year, kind of bursted onto the scene, was an underdog. This year, when all the lights are on him, kind of disappointed. And in a similar boat, a name that we always hear, especially here in this state, Matt Campbell, of course, gets put up there from Iowa State. And that one, out of all the names so far, I can really say with confidence, I don't see happening. I think that ship has sailed for Matt Campbell. I think he's a great coach, but especially with how disappointing this season has been, I don't know if he's a top 5 name down on the list for Penn State right now, in my opinion. A name I really like, but now it just comes down to which conference do you pick between, is Brent Key from Georgia Tech. Has Georgia Tech in the top 12. You have SEC wide open right now, but also college football seems wide open, which is a positive for Penn State, but also a negative, because now we could see if you take over Penn State, it is not like you are automatically going to be able to pick up recruits because you're one of the top names in the Big Ten. In the SEC, you have teams all over the place. Georgia Tech can easily compete for an SEC title. So does Brent Key decide to leave Georgia Tech to go to a Big Ten school? I don't know. I don't know about that one. And lastly, the name that I think fits most is Alec Golish from USF. Has this team 19th in the country. They beat Florida on the road. He is the hottest name in college football right now. And out of all the names we have listed, he is the only one that I can say with 100% confidence makes sense to make the move to Penn State, and it would be a true step up to leave his current school for Penn State. All the other ones, you can make strong arguments for and against. So that will finish up today's show. And please comment. I'm going to put out a tweet here. Please comment who you think should take over for James Franklin and at Penn State. Maybe it's a name we didn't list. Maybe we're missing people. I was kind of going off of the USA Today articles that I was reading and just from the names I was seeing on Twitter. But man, a lot of craziness. I usually actually go and work out and then come home and I start working on the show. And thank God I decided to wait a little longer, finish watching the Seahawks game before I started, because I would have had to scrap a bunch of stuff that I had planned for because the James Franklin news happened around 12:30. So a lot of fun though in today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that great stuff on Twitter, on social media, and wherever you get your podcasts. Please do that. And before we wrap up today's show, need to give a shout out to Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. They treated me like family, and that's why I want you to go there, because they'll treat you like family and make sure you're safe and ready to hit the road. 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. When you go to Stevens Automotive and Sales, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. That'll do it for today. Wednesday, huge show. We have Wednesday with Woodley, where we're going to preview the Drake Davidson game, of course, recap the huge win against San Diego. But then we have coaches' interviews, player interviews from today's media day over there at the Knapp Sirens. Basketball season just around the corner for the Drake Bulldogs. We will see you on Wednesday for a brand new episode of the Media Row Podcast.